The desperate escape the neon lights of Neo-Tokyo cast purple shadows across Alina Voss's face as she pressed herself against the cold metal wall of the service corridor. Her wedding dress, a masterpiece of biofabric that had cost more than most people earned in a year, was now torn and dirty. She could hear the security drones humming in the distance, sensors sweeping the upper levels for any trace of her DNA. Alina touched the small data chip hidden in her bouquet. Everything was on their years of genetic research, breakthrough discoveries about human enhancement, and most importantly, evidence of what Victor Ashford planned to do with her work. The man she was supposed to marry in 20 minutes wasn't just after her family's fortune. He wanted to weaponize her research, creating an army of enhanced soldiers for his corporate empire. The corridor shuddered as heavy footsteps approached. Alina held her breath, knowing that discovery meant returning to a life where she would be nothing more than a tool. Victor's enforcers were thorough. They wouldn't give her a second chance to escape. A maintenance hatch opened beside her with a soft hiss. Alina's heart stopped as a figure emerged from the shadows, tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair and eyes that seemed to see right through her. He wore simple clothes, but she noticed the way he moved, fluid and controlled, like a predator assessing its environment. "Dr. Voss," he said quietly, his voice carrying a slight accent she couldn't place. "You're in danger here." Alina backed away, her hand instinctively reaching for the emergency beacon in her purse. "Who are you? How do you know my name?" The stranger held up his hands, showing he meant no harm. "My name is Marcus Kane. I've been watching Ashford's operation for months. I know what he's planning to do with your research." "That's impossible," Alina whispered. "My research is classified at the highest levels." Marcus stepped closer. She noticed his eyes held flecks of silver, a sign of genetic enhancement. "Because I was one of the test subjects 3 years ago, your work saved my life, Dr. Voss. But it also made me into something I never asked to become." The sound of approaching drones grew louder. Marcus glanced toward the main corridor, then back at Alina. "I can get you out of here, but you have to trust me. Ashford's people will be here in less than 2 minutes." Alina looked at this stranger who claimed to know her work, who had somehow found her in the maze of service tunnels beneath the city's most secure building. Every rational thought told her not to trust him, but something in his eyes, pain, determination, and perhaps understanding, made her decision. "Where?" she asked. Marcus smiled for the first time, transforming his serious features. "Somewhere Ashford will never think to look. The old subway tunnels beneath the city. There's a whole community down there of people like me, people who've been enhanced but refuse to be controlled." He extended his hand to her. Alina hesitated for only a moment before taking it. His skin was warm. She felt a strange tingling sensation where they touched, whether from his enhancements or something else entirely. She couldn't say as Marcus led her deeper into the tunnel system. Alina couldn't help but notice how he moved with perfect awareness of his surroundings. Every few steps, he would pause to listen. His head tilted slightly, as if hearing things beyond normal human perception. "The enhancements," Alina said softly as they walked. "What did they do to you?" Marcus glanced back at her, his expression unreadable in the dim light. "Enhanced strength, speed, sensory perception, but the real change was deeper at the cellular level. I heal faster, age slower, think differently. Your research was brilliant, Dr. Voss, but Ashford perverted it." They reached a hidden entrance concealed behind what looked like solid concrete. Marcus pressed his palm against a specific spot and the wall slid away silently. Beyond was a world Alina had never imagined, a thriving underground city lit by bioluminescent panels, filled with the quiet hum of advanced technology. "Welcome to Haven," Marcus said, his hand still holding hers as he led her into her new life. Alina stared in amazement at the underground sanctuary that stretched before them. Haven was nothing like the dark, primitive hideout she had expected. Advanced hydroponic gardens created walls of living green, while soft, bioluminescent lighting cast everything in a warm, welcoming glow. People moved through the space with purpose, their conversations creating a gentle murmur that somehow felt more alive than the sterile silence of the corporate towers above. Marcus guided her. through the main thoroughfare, his hand still gently holding hers. Alina noticed how the residents nodded respectfully to him, their eyes curious but kind when they looked at her. Many showed signs of enhancement, unusual eye colors, graceful movements, or the faint shimmer of biomodifications beneath their skin. "How many people live here?" Alina asked, still taking in the impossible sight. "About 300, Marcus replied, leading her toward a quieter section. All refugees from the enhancement programs. Some escaped, others were rescued. A few, like me, were presumed dead. They stopped before a modest dwelling carved into the tunnel wall." Marcus pressed his palm against the door, which recognized his biometric signature, and slid open. Inside, Alina found a surprisingly comfortable living space, simple but clean. "With books lining one wall and a small kitchen area, you can stay here," Marcus said, suddenly seeming unsure of himself. "I have a room upstairs. You'll be safe while we figure out our next move." Alina set down her ruined bouquet and really looked at Marcus for the first time since their escape. In the soft lighting of his home, she could see the fine scars along his neck and arms, evidence of surgical procedures, but there was something else in his expression, a vulnerability that contrasted sharply with his enhanced capabilities. "Marcus," she said softly, "what exactly did my research do to you?" He was quiet for a long moment, then moved to the kitchen area and began preparing tea. Alina noticed his movements were precise, economical, nothing wasted. The official report said I died during the procedure. Massive organ failure, cellular rejection of the enhancements. But I survived, and when I woke up, I was different. He brought her a cup of steaming liquid that smelled of herbs she couldn't identify. Their fingers brushed as he handed it to her, and again she felt that strange tingling sensation. "Different how?" Alina asked, settling onto his simple couch. Marcus sat beside her, careful to maintain some distance. "Everything is sharper. Sounds, smells, emotions. I can hear your heartbeat right now, smell the adrenaline still in your system from our escape. But it's more than that." He looked directly at her, and she saw something raw in his silver-flecked eyes. "I feel things more intensely than I used to. Pain, anger, but also... ... double quotes. He trailed off. "But also what?" Alina whispered. "Attraction," Marcus said quietly. "Connection. Things I thought the enhancements had burned out of me." Alina felt her cheeks warm. There was something about this man, his strength combined with gentleness, his protective nature, the way he looked at her as if she were precious rather than valuable, that drew her in despite the impossibility of their situation. "I never meant for my research to hurt anyone," she said, setting down her cup and moving closer to him on the couch. "If I had known what Ashford was doing... You couldn't have known," Marcus said firmly. "And your work wasn't wrong, Alina. It was revolutionary. The problem was the people who stole it from you." The use of her first name sent a warm shiver through her. She studied his face, noting the sharp cheekbones, the full lips, the way his dark hair fell across his forehead. "Show me," she said suddenly. "Show you what?" "The enhancements. I want to understand what was done to you." Marcus hesitated, then slowly rolled up his sleeve. Alina gasped softly at what she saw, intricate patterns of slightly raised skin that looked almost like circuitry, but organic, alive. Without thinking, she reached out and traced one of the patterns with her fingertip. Marcus went very still at her touch, his breathing becoming shallow. The pattern under her finger began to glow faintly, pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. "It's beautiful," Alina whispered, mesmerized by the way his body was responding to her touch. "I had no idea the integration would be so complete," Alina, Marcus said, his voice rough with an emotion she couldn't quite identify. She looked up to find him watching her with an intensity that made her stomach flutter. They were sitting so close now that she could feel the warmth radiating from his enhanced metabolism, could see the way his pupils dilated slightly as he looked at her. "We should get some rest," Marcus said, but he made no move to pull away from her touch. "Should we?" Alina asked, her scientific curiosity mixing with something much more personal and immediate. Marcus reached up and gently cupped her face with his palm. "You've been through hell today. You nearly died. You lost everything you thought was your future. This isn't the time to make decisions you might regret. Alina leaned into his touch, feeling safer than she had in months. What if I don't regret it? For a moment, she thought he might kiss her. The air between them seemed charged with possibility. Then Marcus gently pulled back, though his eyes remained fixed on hers. Get some sleep, Alina, he said softly. Tomorrow, we figure out how to stop Ashford from using your research to hurt more people. Tonight, you're safe. As Alina settled into the comfortable bed Marcus had prepared for her, she could hear him moving around upstairs. Despite everything that had happened, despite the danger they still faced, she felt something she hadn't experienced in years, hope, and the thrilling possibility that her life was just beginning. Alina woke to the soft sound of Marcus moving around the kitchen below. Morning light filtered down through cleverly designed shafts that brought natural illumination to the underground space. She had slept better than she had in months. Despite everything that had happened, she found Marcus preparing breakfast, his movements efficient and graceful. He had changed into a simple black shirt that emphasized his broad shoulders and the lean strength of his enhanced physique. When he looked up and smiled at her, Alina felt that same flutter in her stomach from the night before. How did you sleep? Marcus asked, handing her a cup of coffee that smelled surprisingly good. Better than I have in a long time, Alina admitted, taking a seat at his small table. Marcus, last night you said you knew about Ashford's plans. How much do you really know? Marcus's expression grew serious. He moved to a cabinet and withdrew a thick folder, placing it on the table between them. I've been investigating the enhancement program for 2 years, ever since I discovered I wasn't the only survivor. Alina opened the folder and gasped. Inside were detailed medical records, photographs of test subjects, and copies of correspondence between Ashford and various military contractors. But what made her hands shake was seeing her own research notes, annotated with modifications she had never authorized. They've been using my work to create soldiers, Alina whispered, looking at images of enhanced humans in military gear, but this level of modification should be impossible. The cellular rejection rate would be catastrophic. It is, Marcus said grimly. For every successful enhancement, there are a dozen failures. People who died screaming as their bodies tore themselves apart from the inside. He pointed to a section of the file. Look at the dates, Alina. This started 6 months before you were even approached about the marriage alliance. Alina studied the timeline, her scientific mind processing the implications. They planned this from the beginning. The engagement, the research funding, everything was designed to give them legal access to my work. She looked up at Marcus, seeing her own anger reflected in his silver-flecked eyes. How did you get all this information? Marcus was quiet for a moment, then pulled his shirt over his head. Alina's breath caught as she saw his chest and back. The same organic patterns she had traced the night before covered much of his torso. But these were different, more complex, pulsing with their own internal light. I'm not just enhanced, Marcus said quietly. I'm networked. Connected to every piece of Ashford's security system through quantum biolinks embedded in my neural pathways. They thought I was dead, so they never removed my access codes. Alina stood and moved closer to him, her scientific curiosity overwhelming her personal reservations. This is incredible, she breathed, studying the intricate patterns. The level of integration is beyond anything I theorized. How do you maintain your individual consciousness with this level of connectivity? Some days I'm not sure I do, Marcus admitted. His voice was vulnerable in a way that made Alina's heart ache. The first year after the procedure, I could barely tell where the network ended and I began. I was drowning in data, feeling everything the system felt. Alina reached out and gently traced one of the more prominent patterns on his chest. Marcus sucked in a sharp breath, and the pattern flared brighter under her touch. But you learned to control it, she said softly. I learned to shut it out, Marcus corrected. But when I touch you, ... double quotes, he covered her hand with his. He clenched his chest where she could feel his enhanced heartbeat. When you touch me, everything becomes clear. The noise fades, and I feel human again. Alina looked up into his eyes and saw something that took her breath away. Not just attraction or gratitude, but something deeper. Something that made her feel as if the ground had shifted beneath her feet. "Marcus," she whispered. "I know this is impossible," he said, his other hand coming up to cup her cheek. "I know you barely know me, that everything about this situation is insane. But Alina, what I feel for you, it's the most real thing I've experienced since the enhancement." Alina felt tears prick her eyes. "I feel it too," she admitted. "Last night, when you found me, it was like you were saving more than just my life. You were saving me from becoming someone I would hate." Marcus leaned down until his forehead rested against hers. "Tell me this isn't just gratitude or adrenaline," he said quietly. In response, Alina stood on her toes and kissed him. It was soft at first, tentative, but when Marcus responded by pulling her closer, she deepened the kiss. The patterns on his skin began to glow brighter, pulsing in rhythm with both their heartbeats. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. Marcus looked at her with wonder, as if he couldn't quite believe she was real. "The enhancement patterns," Alina said, still pressed close against him. "They're responding to emotional stimuli, aren't they?" Marcus smiled, the expression transforming his serious features. "Trust you to analyze the biometrics even now. I'm a scientist," Alina said with a small laugh. "It's what I do." Then her expression grew serious again. "But Marcus, what we feel for each other, it's going to make stopping Ashford even more dangerous. If he realizes what you mean to me, then we make sure he doesn't get the chance," Marcus said firmly. "Alina, I've spent 2 years planning to bring down his operation. But I was going to do it alone, probably die in the process. Now I have something to fight for beyond just revenge." Alina traced the patterns on his chest one more time, marveling at how they responded to her touch. "What do you need from me?" "Your expertise," Marcus said, "and your trust. The plan I have in mind is going to require both of us. And it's going to be incredibly dangerous." Alina looked at this man who had saved her, who had shown her a world she never knew existed, whose very body had been transformed by her own research. She thought about the life she was supposed to have lived, married to Victor Ashford. Her research perverted into instruments of death, her days spent in a gilded cage. "Tell me," she said. The next morning brought urgent news that shattered the peaceful atmosphere of Haven. Marcus burst into the main living area where Alina was studying enhancement protocols, his face grim with worry. "They've found us," he said without preamble. "My network connection picked up chatter from Ashford's security teams. They're mobilizing for a major operation in this sector." Alina looked up from her work, immediately understanding the implications. "How long do we have? Maybe 6 hours?" "Before they breach the outer perimeters," Marcus replied, already moving toward his equipment cache. "The others are evacuating to the secondary tunnels." "But Alina, there's something else." He activated a holographic display that showed intercepted communications. Victor Ashford's cold face appeared in the projection, speaking to someone off-screen. "The girl is secondary now," Ashford was saying. "Kane is the real prize. Fully integrated enhancement that survived the neural cascade. Imagine what we could learn from dissecting him." Alina felt ice form in her stomach. "They know you're alive. And they know we're together," Marcus added grimly. "Which means this isn't just about stopping my investigation anymore. They want to capture both of us, for the research value." Alina stood and moved to him, placing her hands on his chest where the enhancement patterns were already beginning to pulse with agitation. "Then we don't give them the chance." Marcus covered her hands with his. "Alina, what I'm about to suggest, it's dangerous beyond anything we've faced so far. Tell me." Marcus pulled up another display, this one showing the schematics of Ashford's main research facility. "We don't run. We attack. While his forces are down here hunting us, we infiltrate his laboratory and destroy everything, all the research, all the test subjects, everything he's built with your stolen work." Alina studied the facility layout with her scientist's eye for detail. "The security will be incredible. Biolocks, automated defenses, enhanced guards. It would be suicide for normal humans." "Good thing we're not normal," Marcus said with a grim smile. My network access should get us past most of the electronic systems. And you know the research better than anyone. You'd know exactly what to destroy and how to do it permanently. Alina looked at him, by seeing the determination in his silver-flecked eyes, the way his enhanced body was already preparing for battle. The patterns under her hands were shifting, becoming more angular, more aggressive. She realized this was what he had been building toward all along. There's something else, Alina said quietly. Something I haven't told you about my research. Marcus waited, his attention completely focused on her. The enhancement process isn't permanent, Alina continued. I built in a failsafe, a genetic sequence that could reverse the modifications. I never told anyone, not even my research partners. But if we're going to destroy everything, we need to make sure that choice exists for people like you. Marcus was very still. You could make me fully human again, if you wanted, Alina said carefully. The process would be dangerous, and there's no guarantee you'd survive it. But the option exists. For a long moment, Marcus said nothing. Then he pulled her closer until they were pressed together chest to chest. Alina, ask me in a year if I want to give up being enhanced. Right now, these modifications are the only thing that might keep you alive. The sound of distant explosions echoed through the tunnels. Ashford's forces had arrived ahead of schedule. We have to go now, Marcus said urgently. He grabbed a tactical pack and weapons from his cache, but Alina caught his arm. Wait, she said. If we're really going to do this, if we're really going to risk everything, then I need to tell you something. Marcus paused. Even as the sounds of combat grew closer, I'm falling in love with you, Alina said simply. I know it's impossible. I know we've only known each other for 2 days, but Marcus, what I feel for you is unlike anything I've ever experienced. Marcus dropped his pack and pulled her into his arms, kissing her with fierce intensity. When they broke apart, his enhancement patterns were glowing so brightly they cast shadows on the walls. Alina, he said against her lips, I've been in love with you since the moment I saw you in that corridor. Not just because you created me, but because of who you are. Your courage, your brilliance, the way you touch me like I'm still human. Another explosion, much closer this time. They could hear shouting in the tunnels. Promise me, Alina said, urgently, that whatever happens at the facility, you won't sacrifice yourself to save me. We do this together, or not at all. I promise, Marcus said. If you promise me the same thing. Alina smiled and kissed him once more, quick and fierce. Deal. They gathered their equipment and moved toward the tunnel's emergency exit. As they climbed toward the surface, toward the most dangerous mission either had ever attempted, Alina felt something she had never experienced before, the absolute certainty that she would rather face death with Marcus than safety without him. Behind them, the sounds of battle filled the tunnels, as Ashford's forces discovered that the residents of Haven were not as helpless as they appeared. But ahead of them lay an even greater challenge, and the slim hope that their forbidden love might be strong enough to bring down the system that had created them both. The Ashford Research Complex loomed against the night sky like a monument to corporate power. Alina crouched beside Marcus on the rooftop of an adjacent building. Watching the facility's security patterns through high-tech surveillance equipment, her heart hammered against her ribs. But her scientific mind remained focused on the mission ahead. Guard rotation changes in 3 minutes, Marcus whispered, his enhanced hearing picking up communications from their targets below. The patterns on his exposed arms were dim, controlled. As he channeled his abilities into infiltration mode rather than combat readiness, Alina studied the building's biosecurity grid through her portable analyzer. I can disable the genetic scanners, but once we're inside, we'll have maybe 20 minutes before the system resets and locks us in. Marcus turned to look at her, and in the moonlight she could see both determination and love in his silver-flecked eyes. Alina, once we do this, there's no going back. Ashford will never stop hunting us. Good, Alina said firmly. Because I never want to stop fighting him. They moved together across the rooftop with practiced synchronization. 2 days of planning and preparation evident in their fluid coordination. Marcus used his enhanced strength to create their entry point, while Alina's expertise with biosystems got them past each successive layer of security inside the facility. The familiar sterile corridors brought back memories Alina wished she could forget. This was where her research had been perverted, where her dreams of helping humanity had been twisted into nightmares of control and exploitation. Lab 7, she whispered, checking her scanner. That's where they're keeping the current test subjects. They found 12 people in various stages of enhancement. Most unconscious, some clearly dying from rejection reactions. Elena's hand shook with rage as she began the process of stabilizing the survivors while Marcus worked to free them from their restraints. "Elena," Marcus said urgently, "we've got company." The door burst open, and Victor Ashford strode in, flanked by 6 enhanced guards. He looked exactly as Alina remembered, cold, calculating, handsome in a way that now made her skin crawl. His gaze moved from her to Marcus, and his smile was predatory. "Dr. Alina Voss," Ashford said smoothly, "and the famous Marcus Kane. Do you have any idea how valuable you both are to my research program?" "We're here to end your research program," Alina said, stepping protectively closer to Marcus. Ashford laughed. "With what? Noble intentions?" "My dear Alina, you're brilliant, but you're also naive. The enhancements I've created from your work have applications beyond military use. Medical applications, life extension, human evolution itself, built on stolen research and murder," Marcus growled, his patterns beginning to glow with barely controlled anger. "Built on progress," Ashford countered. "Marcus, you're living proof of what we can achieve. Enhanced strength, speed, sensory perception, networked intelligence. You're the next step in human evolution." Alina felt Marcus tense beside her, saw the way his enhancement patterns were shifting toward combat configuration. But she also noticed something else, the way Ashford's guards were positioned. The subtle signs that this was a trap designed to capture them both alive. "The only thing you've proven," Alina said, reaching for Marcus's hand, "is that love is stronger than control." The moment their fingers touched, Marcus's patterns flared brilliant white, and Alina felt the connection she had been theorizing about for days. Through their joined hands, she could suddenly sense the facility's entire network, feel the data flowing through Marcus's enhanced neural pathways, and she realized what they could do together now. "Marcus," she whispered. Marcus smiled and opened his connection to the facility's systems fully. But instead of just accessing them, Lena used her knowledge of the bio-network protocols to channel her own consciousness, through their joined hands into the system itself. Together, they became a virus more sophisticated than anything purely technological could achieve. Ashford's face went from smug confidence to alarm as every system in the facility began responding to Alina and Marcus's combined will. Security doors opened to free the test subjects. Defense grids shut down. Most importantly, the research databases began deleting themselves. Years of stolen work and illegal experimentation vanishing into digital oblivion. "Stop them," Ashford screamed, but his enhanced guards found themselves unable to move as Marcus took control of their biomechanical systems through the network. Alina felt the power flowing through her, intoxicating and dangerous. For a moment, she understood the temptation to use this ability to control rather than liberate. But Marcus's presence in her mind was steady and warm, anchoring her to her humanity. "Alina," Marcus said aloud, though she could hear his thoughts directly now, "the overload will destroy the network. We need to disconnect before it takes us with it." Alina squeezed his hand tighter. "Together," she said. They pulled back from the network simultaneously, just as every biosystem in the facility began cascading into failure. Emergency lights bathed everything in red as the complexest security AI announced evacuation. Protocols. Ashford and his guards fled, but not before the man who had tried to control Elena's life gave her one last venomous look. "This isn't over," he snarled. "Yes, it is," Elena replied calmly. Marcus used his remaining enhanced abilities to guide them and the freed test subjects to safety through the facility's collapsing systems. As they emerged into the night air, Lena looked back at the building where her stolen research had finally been destroyed. 3 months later, Alina and Marcus stood in the main hall of New Haven, the expanded underground city that had become a sanctuary for enhanced individuals seeking freedom from corporate and military exploitation. The community had grown to over 1,000 residents, each one a refugee from programs like Ashford's Alina, established a medical center where she worked to heal the damage done by forced enhancements, while Marcus led the security teams that protected their growing community. But the most important thing they had built together was something. Neither had expected a future where enhanced and unmodified humans lived as equals. Any regrets? Marcus asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind as they watched children play in the bioluminescent gardens. Alina leaned back against his chest, feeling the steady pulse of his enhancement patterns where they touched her skin. The patterns had changed over the months, becoming more complex, more beautiful. As Marcus learned to integrate his modifications with his humanity rather than fighting them, only one, Alina said with a smile. I regret that we didn't find each other sooner. Marcus turned her in his arms and kissed her. The patterns under his skin flared with the warm light of contentment. Around them, their chosen family continued the work of building a better world, one where love was stronger than control, where enhancement meant empowerment rather than exploitation. Their revolution had begun with a desperate escape from a forced marriage, but it had become something greater, a transformation not just of their own lives, but of what it meant to be human in an age where the boundaries between technology and biology were dissolving. And at the heart of it all was the truth Alina and Marcus had discovered together. That real strength came not from genetic modification or corporate power, but from the choice to stand together against those who would use fear to divide humanity against itself. As the stars appeared overhead, through the concealed openings in their sanctuary, Alina knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, she and Marcus would face them as they had faced everything else together, enhanced not just by science, but by love.